This episode today is brought to you by Artery Inc. Let me tell you why I love Artery Inc. so much. When I was working in the hospital, I would walk in and it would be like, let's celebrate nurses this week and let's celebrate doctors this week. And everyone that was working in the laboratory, we were like, what about us? Like, we do everything that we can to try to save patients' lives too, and we never get recognized. And one of the things about Artery Inc. is that they are a company that recognizes all medical professionals. So not just doctors and nurses, but also people who work in the lab or radiology. And they even have a pathologist assistant shirt now, which is crazy because I was never able to get one since I went to school for this. So it's really cool. They're a women-owned company. They draw all of their own designs. I just think they're such a great company and one that's great to support because not only do they do all these great things, but they also give back to the community. And last year they donated like $36,000. So they're just really awesome people to support, especially around this holiday season.
Yeah, so you definitely want to shop small this holiday season with Artery Inc. They're giving us a really awesome deal. You could get 15% off of your order with code LOVEYOURINSIDES23. Don't forget the S on the insides. So everything's really top quality, really awesome. We've been working with them for a few years, and it's cool that they draw all the designs, women-owned just like us. You definitely want to support a smaller business for the holidays.
Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mother Knows Death. I'm here with Maria and we are going to get started with our story of the week.
So our featured story this week is all about Taylor Swift. I'm sure everybody's extremely irritated hearing her name with the pop culture phenomenon happening right now with her and Travis Kelce.
Can I just cut you off for a second? So obviously, like I was just like intrigued by their relationship in the beginning. So I read a couple stories, and now my entire algorithm is just stories about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift all the time. It's seriously is so annoying.
I mean, really, I don't mind it. I think he's a very attractive person, so I don't mind seeing his picture coming up in my feed, and I think they're a pretty nice family. We talked about them a little bit last week. Anyway, this is not your standard Taylor Swift story because it actually has everything to do with us. So she brought her Eras tour internationally. She was playing in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil on Friday evening, and in this area of Brazil, they were reaching record-breaking heat wave. They were saying that the temperatures reached around 104 degrees, but some were saying it felt between the humidity index and everything around 140 degrees. I can't even fathom that. So it was really hot. You could even see in videos taken of her singing that she's almost gasping for air, which I can't even imagine performing being in a situation that hot, but one of the fans got so overheated.
What if I offered you like $100 million? Could you imagine doing it then?
I could deal, of course.
All of a sudden, it wouldn't feel so hot anymore, right?
Exactly. But all of a sudden, one of the fans got so overheated that they sought medical attention at the venue and were brought to a hospital and later died. So this has been kind of a crazy situation because she was supposed to play the next night, and a couple hours before the show, she ended up postponing that show until Monday when it was a little cooler and not such dangerous conditions for everybody. So do you want to kind of explain how this girl could have overheated and how that contributed to her death?
Well, there's been news reports that they were not letting people bring water into the stadium, which is a huge problem because most people, I think a lot of people are already just borderline dehydrated because they don't drink enough. We talk about this on almost every episode, how we're horrible at drinking water. And so if you go and you're not super hydrated as it is, just the excessive sweating could really start to dehydrate you pretty quickly. And what happened was she went in there, she wasn't feeling well. She got brought into I guess there's like a medical service tent or whatever there, and they brought her right to the hospital, but she was pronounced dead within an hour. And the thing is that our body temperatures are 98.6 degrees, and we're warm-blooded mammals, and that's how our body functions the best. Our organs function the best at that temperature. So if it gets too cold, then you can get hypothermia. And if it gets too hot, you could get hyperthermia. And once you get hyperthermia, you can get heat exhaustion, which then can turn into heat stroke, which is really dangerous and could cause a coma, seizures, and ultimately death. And I'm sure Taylor Swift feels horrible about this, obviously. I also heard reports that she was handing out water to people because people in the audience were actually signaling that they were having such a problem. And you saw her gasping for air, and it probably scared the shit out of her, honestly, like, which is reasonable. But this is kind of reminds me of another story of that we did a high profile death dissection on with the Astroworld deaths. It's just scary when you have a large volume of people that they want to go for entertainment, and then people end up getting hurt as a result of it. So it must make the artist feel really terrible about that.
Yeah, I can't imagine she feels good. I feel like she really actually emotionally cares about her fans and their well-being, unlike a lot of people that just want to make
Travis
money.
Scott, that we don't really believe that he felt too bad about that. Well, it didn't seem like it anyway.
I believe if you were following us around that time, we kind of like roasted him a little bit because it seemed like he was encouraging people move around a lot when he was knowing that conditions were already a little dangerous. But that is confirmed that she was definitely handing water out to people. I think it's really scary. I don't know how these performers are performing in these hot stadiums. I think about this because this summer I went to my first stadium concert ever. I saw Beyonce at Lincoln Financial Field, and I had like a nosebleed seat because I wanted to see her really badly, but was definitely not paying hundreds of dollars for it. So I was kind of rushing to my seat because I got there a little late. I heard the show started exactly at 7 o'clock. I was rushing up to my seat. The elevator line was too long. The escalator line was too long. I walked up a ramp, and by the time I got up to my seat on like the 30th row at the top of the section, I really felt like I was going to pass out. And I was like, I can't believe I'm so stupid to have put myself in this situation to not be 2 minutes late to seeing the start of the show, because it was 95 degrees outside. It was disgustingly hot. And then the whole time I was like, how is she dancing in latex long sleeve suits
with
this going
the bright
on?
lights and everything? Well, that's another thing that they were saying about this show was that they did have some water accessible to people, but because there were so many people and depending on where you were sitting, some people couldn't easily get to it. So yeah, and you could see that. I mean, when you went to see Beyonce, there were thousands of people there. It's very hard to be in control of a crowd of that size.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think the venue in Brazil ended up saying that from now on, people could bring in unopened bottles of water. And I just think this is a larger conversation worldwide that needs to be had, because why is a basic necessity like water banned? I understand people could sneak in alcohol and other things.
I don't know if they care about alcohol. They more care about like terrorism stuff, I'm sure, which is understandable.
Yeah, I totally understand that. We just have to kind of work on at these venues. This was a big problem. I don't know if you watched that Woodstock 99 documentary or if you remember it. That's when you were in your late teens, or you were 20 years old when that happened. But they had a bunch of heat exhaustion deaths too. I was busy with like a 5-year-old at that time, if you recall. So no, I didn't watch that documentary. I don't know. It was on HBO a couple years ago, but they had a big problem with the heat exhaustion as well, and people not being able to get water and everything. So I think this is definitely an issue we see coming up regularly.
Okay, let's get on to some juicy celebrity gossip.
Okay, our first story is, I can't even believe we're talking about this, let alone it's an article at all. Kim Kardashian's new ailment. I can't even pronounce this. So do you want to
Coccydynia?
What it is? What is this?
She's saying that she has pain in her lower back / butt, and she thinks she has a condition called coccydynia. And I'm going to tell you right now, the reason that I added this story is because I'm telling you right now that her lower back and her ass hurts because her ass is so big, and the extra weight on her joints is what's causing her pain. It's very clear to me. I can't believe no one's brought this up. A big specimen that we get in surgical pathology every single day is breast reductions. And the reason that they do them, and the reason because most insurances cover it, is because it puts a strain on the back. It really puts people in pain, on musculoskeletal pain. And I also did an autopsy once on an obese person, and their belly was so big that when I opened them up, their rib cage was actually altered. The bones were actually way like bigger on the one side and squished over because of all that weight on the bones. And I'm saying this as a joke, but it's not a joke. Coccydynia is more prevalent in people that are obese, and clearly, like, she's not obese, but the weight around her waist is a lot more than what should be there. And the coccyx bone it's the tailbone. Even though it's like this little tiny thing, it has a lot of ligaments attached to it and one of them attaches to the gluteus maximus muscle. And the weight, I'm telling you, the weight is putting strain on the joint, and that's why she's having pain. So, Kim, if you're listening, it's because your ass is big.
I don't know. I saw this headline and reading this article, and I'm like, they seriously have nothing to contribute. Their show's not doing well. They are just doing every nothing burger to try to get their name still in the press. I really respect her as a businesswoman, but I think this show is not working out in the way they wanted it to, and we're just going to keep seeing these dumb little articles trickling in.
It is dumb, but I think it's worth mentioning because it is a thing that especially, I mean, I could just mostly relate it to breast reductions. All right, so this producer from Euphoria, do you want to get into that, Ray?
Yeah, so this producer, he was driving his 10-year-old home from a tennis tournament. He was driving a Tesla on the autopilot mode, which is something we've talked about before because, you know, they have this mode that I think people are not understanding correctly. I think it's supposed to be an elevated form of cruise control, not just like totally not driving at all. But this guy was driving. He had an unknown medical event, and the son was able, because the car was in this autopilot mode, the son was able to grab the wheel and kind of shut the car down safely since it wasn't driving like a normal car, and call 911 and get assistance there. So the guy ended up dying, and I don't think as of today they have announced what the exact cause was yet, but it's kind of, I think, a really good ad for Tesla that this child was saved in this situation where otherwise it might not have ended so well.
Well, I think that the autopilot feature, like you were saying, is under a lot of scrutiny because people just put it on and they just like sit back and take naps and shit, and it causes accidents. It's caused a couple deaths. So this is one example how that feature, it actually probably saved a life, because a car, I was thinking, I have a 10-year-old, right? If I'm in the car with my 10-year-old and the car's driving by itself and she's in the back seat, like, there's a high probability it's going to crash, and depending on how fast you're going, it could really hurt a child, and if not kill them. So the whole story is crazy to me. That I've never been in a Tesla even, so I don't know how exactly that function works. I'm kind of curious about it though, actually. But yeah, I mean, they did say that it seemed like it was a natural event that happened, that there was no drugs and alcohol involved, but they didn't say exactly what happened. But there's only like so many things that could cause people to just drop dead like that. Cardiac event, probably, like stroke, heart attack, something like that. There's other things too, pulmonary embolism and things like that. But curious to see if they ever come out with that. We always want to follow up with these stories and we never hear from them again. But that's more than likely what happened.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those types of like marketing you could never pay for. It just like this story happens, and I think with all the scrutiny Tesla's been getting, it's definitely going to work in their favor. And now I'm kind of like, wow, like I might look into this kind of car if they have features like this.
I'm not. All right, Sharon Osbourne. I'm sorry, I like to take road trips and I'm not a fan of like charging every couple hours, but all right, Sharon Osbourne, let's talk about her.
So she's kind of one of few celebrities I've noticed that is speaking out against Ozempic. She has said she's lost 42 pounds in less than a year, and she was getting to a point where she couldn't stop losing weight, and it was getting scary for her. It seems like on her weight loss journey, she's lost 100 pounds total. She's not really anybody I've ever thought needed to lose weight, but I don't know. I thought
maybe she struggled with her weight. Like if you look at pictures from her back in the day when Ozzy was like huge, she was a little bit overweight then, for sure. She's had a lot of weight loss, and I don't want to say this, but I believe there was a point where she had some kind of surgical procedure to lose weight originally, like years ago. But I don't want to say that, but I'm pretty sure that she did. And this is the thing with the whole Ozempic. I'm not a pharmacist, obviously. I just know personal experience and know what I read about it. But she, in my opinion, she's 5'2". So if she's saying she's under 100 pounds, let's say she's 100 pounds and she just lost 42 pounds. She was 142 pounds, which according to the BMI chart would have made her like slightly overweight. I don't like just over the line of overweight between normal weight. If she needed to lose a couple pounds, I just think that we should just stop this whole entire movement of like just take this drug to lose 10 pounds or 15 pounds or even 20 pounds like that. You can do that yourself. I feel like that's the whole problem of it. I actually saw someone.
Yeah, I think it's.
Go ahead.
I think it's a good tool for people that have long-term weight loss issues and are severely overweight and need kind of that kickstart to doing it. But I do agree that it should stop being used to lose just that classic 5 to 10 pounds or whatever to try to fit in a dress or do something like that.
I saw this lady yesterday on TV who was saying that she took it because I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. Well, it was offered to me and everybody was taking it, so I just decided to take it, but I got really nauseous, so I stopped taking it. And I'm looking at this lady, and like the circumference of her arm is this big. And I'm like, you didn't even need to lose any weight, let alone 5 pounds. And somebody gave it to you, which I'm assuming was a doctor, because you can't just go buy it yourself. And you took it. And I do think that there's risk with every medication and every treatment, obviously. But like for people that are really dealing with obesity and all the comorbidities associated with that, it's worth taking the risk because they can die otherwise with these comorbidities. But just to lose 5 pounds, it's not worth the risk. And one of the major things is that it slows down the GI tract, and it could cause serious GI problems. It's just not worth it for 5 pounds when all you have to do is cut your calories for a couple weeks. It seems kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. But let's start getting into the freak accident stories because I really want to talk about this next one.
Oh.
So out of Western India, we have a case of a 10-year-old boy that was attacked by a monkey. And I heard this and it was kind of shocking, but apparently this area is having this major problem with these monkeys.
So my mom actually sent us this story. Did you know that? Remember?
No,
oh, yeah,
she
sent it. I was like, oh, good one. And if you guys ever find any cool stories you want to send, obviously send them over because we're always looking for good stories. But this is crazy from this article. It says in quote that this boy was attacked by a quote notorious gang of monkeys. Doesn't that just sound crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And then further down in the article, they discuss how the monkey problem was getting so bad that for certain monkeys, they were setting bounties, which I just can't even fathom living in this environment where monkeys are such a problem that people are like bounty hunting them. So it's kind of wild. And the article also kind of talked about how monkeys aren't notoriously dangerous, but I feel like they're aggressive, but I feel like I've heard a lot of stories where they are aggressive.
Well, I just saw a video recently of a monkey that went into a woman's purse and stole her wallet out and was kind of negotiating with her to give it food. And the lady like tried to hand it something and it wouldn't take it. And then she handed him another thing, like a more appetizing thing, like an apple. And the thing took the apple and gave her wallet back. And I was just like, whoa, this is this is kind of crazy.
I mean, they are incredibly smart creatures, and I guess looking into it more, they're saying they're more likely to attack if they're more cohabitating with humans and they feel either threatened or there's a food source that's threatened. So I guess they're in just such close proximity to humans in this area that the statistics of the attacks are greater because of these factors. So it's definitely a really strange thing I don't think we deal with here, but I am hesitant. I don't know when I would ever be in a case to go near a monkey, but I feel like I keep hearing stories where I don't think I'd ever really want to pet one or go near one because I think they could become really aggressive really quickly, and it's scary. I mean, think of Carla Nat.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened with her?
And this kid, I mean, this kid wasn't just killed by a monkey. This kid was clawed, had his abdomen cut open by the monkey, and his bowels came out and died. That's how this kid died. It was a 10-year-old kid. Horrible, gruesome death.
No, absolutely horrible. I can't imagine that happening. I wonder why it was such an aggressive attack in the sense that it was ripping into the boy's organs and ripping into his body as opposed to just attacking them.
Maybe it felt
really
threatened.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, so then on to the next story, which I have a million questions about, honestly. So this 24-year-old girl was dealing with a breakup, and she was like, let me have a couple of my friends over so we can just drink some tequila, smoke some hookah, and kind of forget about my problems. So they were smoking the hookah for a couple of hours, she said, with the windows and the balcony door open to her apartment. Didn't really have any issues. This was a total of 5 hours, so 2 hours of the smoking and everything, they had the windows open. Then they closed them 2 hours in. So after 4 hours, one of the friends starts complaining that they have a really bad headache and they're having her lay down. They just believe it's part of all the drinking they've been doing and everything. And she's like, no, like it's really something's not right. Shortly after that, another friend starts having severe dizziness, headache, all these stuff. And then the girl herself starts feeling all these symptoms. And then an alarm goes off in her apartment and she's so confused about what's going on. So she turns it off and it comes immediately back on. And she's like, I don't know what's going on, and calls 911. It was carbon monoxide, and I am just confused where the source of the carbon monoxide is because the article indicates it came from the hookah, but I think it was just happenstance that they were smoking the hookah when there was the carbon monoxide.
No, it's from the hookah.
Okay.
Yeah, so a hookah is a water pipe, but you use charcoal to burn it. And
okay, I was
like,
very confused
by it. It's
by
like putting a charcoal grill in your living room, a small one with the windows up. It's carbon monoxide is, if you're cooking with a grill outside, you're totally fine. But if you put that same grill inside, it's not so much of a risk of the fire as much as the carbon monoxide that the fire puts off that could cause you to get seriously ill or die. So yeah, she and this is the part of the story that I think you're being a little nice, because when I read it, I was just like, Jesus, these people need to, there were so many warnings, and she kept blowing it off. The biggest being, one friend has a headache. Okay, whatever. People get headaches. But then the other one gets a headache. You should be like, all right, something's a little weird. But then when your carbon monoxide detector goes off, I understand those things are annoying, because actually that happened to us a week ago. Ours started going off in the middle of the night, but I guess the battery was going dead, but you get it. But she just completely blew off all of the signs that were telling her something was wrong, turned off the carbon monoxide detector. It came back on when she plugged it in. So there's another warning sign. Still didn't really understand what was going on. And then one of the friends was like, I think we should call 911. And they did. And they brought them to, so the firefighters come in and they check, and they could tell that the carbon monoxide level's high. And they brought her to the hospital, and her carbon dioxide level was carbon monoxide level was around 17%. So in you or me, our carbon monoxide level would be less than 2 or 3%. Smokers, sometimes they always have a higher level because they inhale carbon monoxide all the time. But I mean, anything if it gets to 20, it's considered serious illness. So she's pretty close there to having serious carbon monoxide poisoning. And what happens is when you breathe in carbon monoxide with oxygen, when it goes onto your cells that normally bring oxygen to all your organs, that carbon monoxide doesn't let the molecule get released to go into your organs. And it causes severe symptoms, which it starts off with a headache. You always hear about that, but it could lead to coma, death. It's an asphyxial death. And we wrote about that last year. Remember when when a couple of those people died on their vacation in the Bahamas? And it turns out that it was from a carbon monoxide leak. So, yeah, the hookah itself is, when you have something like that lit indoors for multiple hours, that's exactly what happened. It's scary, but I guess regular people just don't think about that kind of stuff.
No, thanks for explaining that, because the way in which the story was written, I was like, okay, they're seemingly blaming the hookah, but also not directly saying it was that. And I, as a non-scientist, don't understand how this could happen. And I think this is a really good, I don't personally know anybody that smokes a hookah, but I think this is a really good warning to a lot of young people that are inclined to do it, and making sure that if you are going to do it, you have proper ventilation, taking all the proper steps. You have to remember too that they were really intoxicated when all the signals started going off. So you have to think that's really scary. So at least this didn't end in tragedy, and they all ended up being okay.
Well, I think that there's always this thing that people are always trying to find these safer alternatives to smoking, and one of them is, there's buzz that the hookah is safer because you're breathing it out of a water pipe, and people have been doing it for centuries. But it's not safe for multiple reasons. Number one, you're still breathing in when you burn any chemical and you breathe it in, it changes the composition of that chemical, and it could become a carcinogen. So it could be a carcinogen, number one, and number two, the carbon monoxide risk is also a health risk. This episode is brought to you by Stink Bomb. The holidays are coming up, and this is the perfect stocking stuffer. It's great for people who, maybe you have a new dad who's changing diapers for the first time and they can't stand the smell of their kid's butt. Or definitely nurses, people working in the lab, in pathology, working in the morgue, just great for smells. I think it's great for men and women who work in the trash industry, especially because trash could smell really nasty. But it's also great for EMTs and first responders as well. And we have a case coming up later that we're going to talk about to tell you exactly why first responders need Stink Bomb.
Yeah, so they are giving us a really, really awesome deal for the holidays. You could use code MKD15 on stinkbombodorblocker.com, and that is to get 15% off of all their products.
Now we're going to get started with violent crimes. This week is especially weird because all of them involve young kids.
So this first story we have in this section is about this kid that's now 18. His name's Jeremy Goodale. When he was 16 years old, November 2021, him and his friend devised a plan to kill their 66-year-old teacher because the teacher had given the friend a bad grade. So the friend has yet to be sentenced, but Jeremy has now been sentenced as of this week. So he has been sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 25 years. In Iowa, there's this requirement that if you're convicted of first-degree murder, that you have to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But since he was a teenager when it occurred, they're kind of letting it slip a little, I guess, even though he was tried as an adult. I think this story is really concerning. The judge was saying he was clearly showing remorse, but still he has to be accountable for his actions. And I think it's really terrifying that a 16-year-old who is so young just had the foresight to kill their teacher over a bad grade just to help their friend. It wasn't even for him. So it's really scary, and now his whole life is ruined because of this.
All right. We need to talk about what the most terrifying part of this story is this week, is that when this kid was sentenced, this kid that killed his teacher with a baseball bat, he started spontaneously bleeding out of his nose in the courtroom. Did you see the photo of that? It's so eerie to me.
I did, and I'm not so familiar with nose bleedings because I've never really experienced them in my life, but could they be triggered by stress?
Yeah, so if you're stressed out, it's kind of a combination of both things. Likely, like the kid's a nose picker or like rubs his nose a lot if you're stressed, so you can kind of rough up the nose by doing that. And then being really stressed, like something like figuring out where you're going to be spending the rest of your life for the rest, whatever this sentence is that he was about to get. His blood pressure and heart rate probably went really high, which would just increase the risk of bleeding to occur. So that's probably what happened, like a combination of nose trauma and also stress. But yeah, there was something like really, really eerie about it. You know what I mean? Because you always have to think like what's going on in the mind of a young person that wants to kill somebody. Like they have these sick thoughts, and it just was so creepy to see that.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. And even more disturbingly is our next story about, I'm sure everybody's seen this circulating in the news for like the past year, I guess, right? This happened earlier this year. So this 6-year-old had brought a gun to school and shot his teacher. How scary that he knew to bring it, knew how to use it enough to injure another person. The teacher fortunately survived. But do you want to talk about kind of the warning signs leading up to this event?
Well, didn't he tell another student like I shot that bitch dead or something crazy like that? There was something about that I remember reading about before. But yeah, I mean the kid, this story is just, there's so many different parts to this story. Obviously the first question is, how did this kid get a gun to put in his backpack to bring to school? But then the kid brought the gun to the backpack to school and apparently told other children or showed other children. And there were like 3 other warning signs and nobody did anything about it, which is why the teacher who got shot is actually suing the school right now, which she should. I'm 100% supportive of that. So
Absolutely.
The next part of the investigation is like, how did this kid even get a gun anyway? So the kid got the gun from the mom's house. Apparently she had it stored in a closet on a shelf that was far away from the kid, but the kid knew where it was and got it anyway. And this mom had, apparently she was under the influence of some kind of drugs or alcohol. And she had other run-ins with the law with gun and substance situations. So I'm not sure what that's even about. But she went and got this gun. It seems like she tried to get it legally, but she lied on her application. You know how you have to say if you were ever convicted of this or that. And we talked about this with Dr. Metzel on a external exam we did a couple weeks ago, just about the gun laws and everything like that. Because in my opinion, if this woman already had a history of run-ins with the law with guns and substances, when she goes to try to get another gun, there should be something in the system and they shouldn't be relying on people to be like honest and tell the truth about their history. So whatever it is, she's gotten convicted of illegally purchasing a firearm and she's going to go to jail for only 21 months. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with the kid, but the defense was saying like her going in jail is just going to exacerbate her mental health condition. And I can't disagree with that because it probably will. I can't imagine that if this family was already so broken that this 6-year-old child decided to shoot his teacher and the mom was some kind of an addict, that now her going to jail and that kid being in wherever he's going to be, I don't even know what they do. I mean, they can't press charges against a 6-year-old, right? So he's going to have to be in the custody of the state. I mean, how's he going to be any better unless somehow he gets adopted by some family that really loves him and takes care of him and gets him extensive therapy or something? Like, I don't even know. But this kid's now a product of, he's going to be in our society now as an adult. I don't even know what the solution is. It's just such a crazy case.
So the mom is getting, this is newsworthy this week because the mother is getting 21 months in jail for this case for possessing a firearm while on controlled substances and then lying on the purchasing application. And then she has also pled guilty to felony child neglect, so that sentencing is totally separate, and that won't be till December 15th, but I don't know how that's going to go as far as if she's going to be away for longer. I don't know if it's going to work out that if she only goes to prison for a couple years, is she going to get custody back of the kid, or is he going to be put in the custody of a family member? We know how this story goes, and it's not looking great, and all we could hope is that this kid is just put in the right situation and has some chance at turning around this, because it's not even his fault that all of this happened necessarily. He's so little.
No,
6 years
he's
old.
a baby.
He's so
a baby.
little.
It's absolutely not his fault. Like, it's people, the adults around him failed him, and it's just sucks.
So another disturbing child case we have is that a 5-year-old has fatally stabbed his twin brother. So they were in a fight. One of them grabbed the kitchen knife and stabbed the other one.
It's, they've done an investigation and they're not pressing charges against anyone. And obviously it sucks, but like if you've ever had a sibling or if you watch people with siblings, kids really can mess each other up sometimes. Knock each other's teeth out. We actually did a post in the gross room once. I feel like it was about a kid that was like wasn't it about a kid that was running through a door or something, and something happened and his penis got like chopped off because the sibling like shut the door on his penis or something. It was something crazy. But at the end of the post I said, does anyone have any situation where you hurt one of your siblings? And anyone that has siblings has a story. Like, I'll never forget when we were in Disney World years ago, my brother was like all up in my sister's face and she grabbed his tongue and like pulled it as hard as she could. I mean, it's funny like to laugh at about this now, but his tongue swelled up really bad and my mom got scared that she was going to have to take him to the hospital because like you can like block off someone's airway with tongue swelling. It's really scary, So, I mean, now it's like funny to laugh about that, but like siblings can really mess each other up. I think that my husband knocked his sister's teeth out. It's like this just happens, right? And obviously, like a kid grabbed a kitchen knife. There's no reason that the parents should be charged because there was a knife in the kitchen. That's normal. I just think it's just like a sad freak thing,
Yeah, absolutely. So our last story in this section is all about this woman that fatally poisoned her friend using eyedrops. So Jesse I can't even say this last name, and we're Polish. I should know how to say it. I'm going to say
just say Jesse.
30. Jesse was a 39-year-old woman out of Wisconsin. This story is so weird. I don't know if you find it as weird as I do. So 5 years ago, she's saying she gave her... This is how I'm understanding it. 5 years ago, she calls 911 because her friend is having difficulty bleeding, and her friend is in her 60s. So she's telling the cops that she gave her a water bottle with the equivalent of 6 containers of Visine in it, and she didn't think this time was going to kill her because the friend always drank Visine, and she thought her body was used to it. So I was like, are you trying to play this off as a My Strange Addiction type of thing, or did you murder this lady and you're acting like she had this addiction to drinking eye drops?
Well, Visine is a drug that people sometimes abuse. There's all this like buzz that it causes, like psycho, like it almost makes you like trip or something if you take it, but it doesn't. It kills you if you take it, and it's very toxic actually. Only 1 to 2 drops of it can be fatal to a child. So it's important because if you have a bottle of eye drops and a little kid, they don't have like safety lids on them and stuff. If a little kid has access to that and drinks it, it's a really big deal, and it's fatal to adults too. But And another thing is that like people that do drugs and stuff, they overuse the drops sometimes to mask that they are doing drugs because it clears their eyes out. But really the chemical that's in it is what it's called a vasoconstrictor. So when your eyes are red, it's because your blood vessels in your eyes are like open and they're engorged and you see blood through them. So the vasoconstrictor makes the blood vessels smaller in the eye. But if you eat it, it also makes your blood vessels in your body constrict as well. And you don't want the blood vessels around your heart, your coronary arteries, to constrict, because that's going to constrict blood flow to your heart, or the ones in your neck to constrict blood flow to your brain. So it's toxic. And it is possible that the lady was taking Vaseline or Visine as a drug, but it just, when you hear the story of like this girl was like a daughter to her and she was about to get a huge insurance payout, it seems more likely that she poisoned her with it.
Yeah, because her defense, Jesse's defense, was that really pushing this suicide narrative. Like she knew what she was doing. She knew it was a fatal dose taking this, but she took it all the time. So kind of hands-off situation. But yeah, it came out that she was a beneficiary of hers, and even though she was pushing this suicide narrative, the jury certainly was not going for it. So she is guilty of 2 counts of felony theft and for stealing from the woman. So this is really, really sad and scary, and we are going to have an interview coming up with somebody that writes about poisonings, and I think something really interesting in her book was she said the difference between what makes it a poison is the dose necessarily, right? So we have all these everyday household objects, and the only thing that makes them regular to poison is just the amount we're consuming or accidentally given or somebody's purposely giving us to end our life. So I think that's a really interesting point to bring up with this.
Yeah, totally.
So on to medical. Do you want to talk about this story that happened at this hospital? Because a lot of the stories this week are really confusing me, and I don't know.
This story actually confuses me too. So there's a hospital in Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts, that came out this week and said that over the past 2 years, patients that have been going and getting endoscopies, which is when they stick a camera inside of you to check to see that people get them all the time. They're checking to see if you have any problems with your esophagus or your stomach. I actually had one like 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, which is scary because you just trust the place that you're going to. And they're saying that over 450 patients have possibly been exposed to hepatitis B, hepatitis C, or HIV. So my first thought with that is how? Because they clean the endoscopies every single time they use them in between patients. That was my first thought. Like, okay, it's coming from the scope. They're not cleaning the scopes correctly. But they're saying it had something to do with when they put the IV medications in, saying, quote, in a manner not consistent with our best practice. So I texted my friend Annette, who's a nurse, to say, like, you put in IVs all the time. Like, I don't really understand. I don't understand because everything is separate. Like, how, in order for there to be a risk, it has to be like you're using a needle from one person and sticking it in another person. So we're just trying to figure out like how this exactly happened, and they're not really saying exactly how it happened. I just don't know where the cross contamination occurred, but it's still really scary.
They're not saying what. Yeah, and they're not saying what's happening, and they're saying it was brought to their attention earlier this year. So I'm thinking this is really sounding familiar again with the good nurse situation and what happened with Charlie Cullen. He was contaminating drip bags. So did they have somebody on staff that they were made aware was contaminating the drip bags or contaminating the equipment? I don't know. I think this is a really unusual case, and everything you just explained, it just doesn't even add up how these people would have exposure to this.
I could see it with the medications though, but how would you? Because Hep B, Hep C, HIV, they're bloodborne pathogens. So how is some patient's blood getting exposed to another person or getting biopsies or something, like you could see. So like I had biopsies taken when I had my endoscopy. So they stick these little like clippers in down there and they cut a piece off. But sometimes you bleed a little bit. So that you could say, okay, that's where the blood source comes from. Because a typical endoscopy, like you wouldn't have access to blood because you're just going in the tube and coming out. I don't know. The whole thing, I don't like it, but I certainly believe them when they say this. So who knows what happened. I hope they eventually tell us so it doesn't happen in another place. But it's scary that in 2023 that this was happening for 2 years and they're just kind of saying it now.
Yeah, and my favorite part of this is they said they're offering free testing to anybody that was exposed. Like it better fucking be free if you contaminated me.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice of you. Thanks a lot.
What? Gee, thanks.
All right, let's talk about other death news.
Okay, so this story is kind of wild. So I don't know. It's not uncommon, apparently. So this 24-year-old jumped to his death from a parking structure in Disneyland. So it is the 6th suicide from this parking structure since 2010, but the 3rd since last December. So what do you think that's about?
People want to die in the happiest place on earth, I guess.
I was just going to bring that up. Do you think there's some psychology behind it? Like, I want to end my life in the happiest quote-unquote place on earth.
Yeah, I do, for sure. And so last year, maybe even 2 years ago at this point, we wrote a high-profile death dissection on, it was just Disney World, right?
Yeah, just Disney World,
but all the
natural.
Yeah, like all the people who have ever died in Disney World. It's a really, if you're a Disney person, you'll love this because we've always heard that they've never pronounced a death at Disney. There's like, and that's just a total lie. There's lots of people that died just like having a heart attack, and there's been suicides. There's been all sorts of insane things that have happened in Disney World. So that was really eye-opening for us researching that particular post. But yeah, I mean, we've been hearing, and this happened, I recall it happening a couple times in Disney World, and I think that this article is specifically speaking to Disneyland. So yeah, I think that there's definitely something to it. Like, why would you go all the way there to do it? It's not really easy to get in there, right? And clearly you're probably planning the suicide, so
yeah, there has to be some weird psychology behind it, because I can't explain it. Because why else would you even pay all that money?
Yeah.
Even if you were gonna die, you could give it to somebody else.
I don't know. But jumping suicides is not a very common method of suicide. We did a celebrity death dissection 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago on Chesley Christ,
about
the beauty pageant queen.
Yeah, a recent jumping suicide, and just talked all about the statistics involved with that and everything. But it's not common, and it's just sad because Disney World's like kind of a place you want to go to escape all of the horrible things that go on in this world, and you certainly don't want to think about, getting your coffee in the morning on your way to the park and walking with your kids hand in hand with your matching ears on, and then all of a sudden some person like splatters to the sidewalk next to you. It's a little depressing.
Yeah. So on to this next story. This woman had died. Her family goes to her funeral. They go through the regular motions. They go in there, they sign the book, and as they're approaching it, one of them's like, I don't think that's her. And then they get close to the casket. It's definitely not their family member in the casket, but the person in the casket is wearing all the clothes and jewelry that the family had brought for their deceased person. So they confronted the funeral director about it, who was really rude and was like, well, you have to pay for this all over again.
Yeah, and the family,
like, what?
And the family was like, you're going to have to get us new clothes and a new casket because you're not putting, like, these clothes that are on this random dead lady on our family member now. Like, we don't want it. It's kind of gross, which I kind of agree. Like, it's just kind of skeevy, And they did eventually agree to buying new clothes for the woman, but they wouldn't budge on the casket.
No, and they put the same earrings on her, which really bothered them. And the most annoying part, of this was the publication reached out for comment, and the funeral director said he could neither confirm nor deny the happenings at the funeral home.
Yeah, and this is not the first time I've seen a story like this. Like, obviously I don't work in funeral homes. I don't know how often it happens, but I'm sure it's the same as in the hospital. Like, we don't autopsy the wrong person because there's multiple checks in place to make sure that this person is labeled and that this person looks like this person, and multiple checkpoints. And I mean, at a funeral home, you're going to have the same thing. You might have a refrigerator that has 2 or 3 people in it, but there should definitely be checkpoints to make sure that something like this doesn't happen, because this could be very traumatic for people too. But their biggest point of this, which I think is like the public service announcement, is thank God they had an open casket, because if they didn't, they would have totally been visiting the grave of someone that wasn't even their family member, and not knowing that their family member was who knows where. It's kind of scary.
Imagine getting that call. Imagine getting that call eventually that inevitably the other, like, your family member is going to turn up in somebody else's casket. So imagine if they did
not
have
if
a
it was
closed
2
casket.
closed caskets, and then now you're just like, how many times does this happen? Does it happen all the time? How would you even know?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, imagine burying your loved one and then having the closure, and then getting a call a couple days later being like, oh, the wrong person's in there.
This has happened. I have heard this happen before, where a person gets cremated that shouldn't have got cremated and stuff. I mean, it sucks, but all right, let's talk about this. So this last case is really, really, really disturbing, and just thank God for police and first responders, because some of the shit that they have to see every day is just on another level.
So state police got a call to investigate a dead body. They arrive at the house, and they turn up to this house that's completely infested with rats. There's feces smeared on the walls. Rats are everywhere. And it turns out that this woman and her 2 children, who were 5 and 9 years old, lived in this house, and their father was deceased on the 2nd floor. His body was also covered by rats eating his corpse.
Yeah. So do you see now why, like, first responders, EMTs, they need stink bomb? Because could you imagine walking into a house that has feces smeared on the wall? Why would that ever need to happen? Rats everywhere, and the rats are eating away at a dead, decomposing body. That must just smell completely horrible. I can't even imagine. And how do you go home at night to your family when you see something like this? And these kids, these little kids, were right around their father being like this. I mean, they didn't say that he was murdered by the wife. They didn't really say anything as to how he died. He was pretty, I mean, he was probably a younger guy. I guess you can't really assume that, but the woman was, she was in her 30s, right? You can't assume that the dad was that old, but you don't just die, right? So something, was he on drugs? Did she kill him? I don't know what happened, but
I mean, right now she's just being charged with child endangerment. So it's seemingly, as of this point in time, that she's not charged with murder or anything, but it's still horrible and really disgusting that children had to grow up in this environment.
It's so messed up.
Okay, on to our questions of the day. So just to start this off, every Friday we post on the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram a little question box in the story. So if you want your question potentially answered, you could drop it in the box. We'll take a look at it and feature a couple on the show. So we had a couple really good ones this week. I want to start off with the first one, which is, how does forensics play a role in pathology?
That's a good question. So there's all different, there's about 5 different manners of death, we would say. You can die naturally, which means typically I would say that's pathology. That's when you have a disease or something that caused you to die. Homicide, you die at the hands of another. Suicide, you die at the hands of yourself. Or accident, you die accidentally. And then the 5th manner of death is undetermined, which means we did the autopsy, we did the toxicology, we just have no idea how you died. And it's used sparingly because obviously that manner of death doesn't sit well with people. But there's oftentimes, you would say that the forensic autopsies are done by the medical examiner's office. Let's say, for example, let's use Philadelphia because that's where I live near, the closest one. And there's oftentimes that people that work in the medical examiner's office who are doing autopsies of homicides and suicides and accidents are also doing natural ones, because people die all the time and they need to rule out if it was suspicious or not. Just because if you die at home and nobody really knows what happened and you didn't go to the hospital, sometimes just looking at your body laying there dead in your living room isn't really helpful and doesn't let the medical examiner know exactly how you died. So sometimes you have to go there and get an autopsy. And when I was interning at the medical examiner's office, I saw lots of natural pathology cases. I saw pulmonary embolisms. I saw lots of heart things. I saw lots of cancers. So there's definitely like an overlap. And then also the other overlap is when you're working in the hospital, you get a lot of people at the hospital that get shot, get in car accidents, but they get brought to the hospital and they live. They might live a couple days, they might live a week, but then they die. So you have forensic cases in the hospital as well. And we need to know like which cases need to go to the medical examiner's office, which cases need to stay with us, just because they're natural pathology cases in the hospital. So I hope that answers your question.
All right, next. Have you ever done an autopsy on a prisoner who was executed?
No. So the only two places that I've done autopsies are in the state of New Jersey, and capital punishment doesn't happen in New Jersey. And the last time someone was executed was like in the 60s. And in Pennsylvania, capital punishment is a thing, but they haven't executed anybody since 1999. So no, I haven't.
All right, next. Is it true that pacemakers explode in the crematorium?
So I get asked this a lot. I've never cremated a person, so I personally have not experienced it, but I do know based on medical literature that I've read that yes, they do from time to time. It's just not common, but they are lithium ion batteries, which we're interviewing someone about that, a firefighter about that next week because of all the recent fires in New York. But when they burn at a certain temperature, they can cause like an explosion in the crematorium. So there has been documented cases of it happening, but it doesn't happen all the time. I can tell you that I've been shocked by a pacemaker one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what I did wrong, but it did scare. I mean, obviously, like it wasn't even enough that I needed medical treatment. It just zapped me a little bit. But when I do the autopsy and I open up, when I do the Y incision underneath of the flap, we have to cut the wires because it's kind of like a battery that's underneath a pocket of skin up here, and then the wires go into the heart. So you have to cut it because it's hard. It's not really worth it to try to dissect it out intact when you're not really looking for that. And I would just cut it with scissors. And one time when I cut it, it zapped me. So obviously like the metal against the electrode like could cause that. But all of these studies done say that people that do autopsies are not at a risk of like a really bad shock because we wear like rubber gloves and sometimes multiple pairs. I think they were saying in one of the research papers that I read that 2 pairs of the rubber gloves were the safest. And there is a possibility at that point of the autopsy, maybe I only had 1 pair on for whatever reason. I don't know what I did wrong, but every single time after that, I would just cut and be like, please don't happen. Because it just was like enough to just feel kind of gross.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I hope you asked the fireman about, well, I guess you wouldn't have to ask him. I didn't think about having the lithium ion battery in your own body and if that could potentially be a fire hazard as well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like I don't really have much experience with pacemakers other than taking them. I would get them in surgical pathology a lot when they were taken out of people, and I took them out of a lot of people, but I don't really know much about the ins and outs of them. So we could ask for sure. Like, has a person ever caught on fire because of a lithium ion battery inside their body? I'm not sure. I'm sure that the way that the things are made, it's it's just different, but maybe not. Just I really don't know. I'll look it up because I'm kind of interested in that now, honestly.
Okay, our last question is, what are both of our guilty pleasures? Do you want to start?
I don't know. I like a guilty pleasure is like, what are you saying? It's like something that you're like embarrassed that you like or something.
Yeah, I guess it's like the definition is something you like that's not highly like highly regarded is the actual definition
Like talking
of it.
about dead people all day and stuff like that. I don't know. Like I guess I would say one I watched this show called Bunked with my kids, and it's like it's definitely a little kid show, but I love it, and I feel like my husband makes fun of me because I'm like, I would prefer to watch that show. Like, I don't even need the kids to be around to watch it because I think it's written really well and it's funny. And obviously, like, I always say this to you guys that I really like to watch shows that, because, like, life and autopsy and everything is so just depressing and serious that whenever I watch stuff for entertainment, I want it to be, like, happy and funny. And watching a show like Sex and the City, of course, is like, it's funny, but it's easy to make funny jokes when you use curses and when you talk about sex. But to write funny stuff that's like G or PG rated that could be funny, I think is like extra clever. So I think that's why I love that show. But it's kind of embarrassing because like it's not something that that people that are like 44 years old typically watch probably. So I guess that I would say it's Bunked on the Disney Channel. How about you, Ray? Beat that.
Genuinely, all my pleasures I'm not guilty about, even though they could probably be categorized as guilty pleasures. No, I'm not. Like, trash television, like reality shows are generally guilty pleasures. I'm not embarrassed to love them. I really love them. I eat pretzels with ketchup, which is probably not popular. I will
like
also
hard
blindly
pretzels?
defend that. No, like if you get those, well, now we're gluten free, but before I would get like microwave super pretzels and dip them in ketchup, and they were delicious.
Oh, man, I miss
I
pretzels
preferred it
so
to
bad.
mustard.
Like a Wawa pretzel. I would just eat that every single day.
Yeah, I mean, pretzels are one of my favorite snacks ever, so that was a really huge hit, but that is something I really enjoyed doing, but not with salt. It has to be like a saltless pretzel just in ketchup. I'm still not embarrassed of it, though. I guess one of my guilty pleasures is I still like to drive around and like sing emo music in my car, like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy and stuff.
We did not need to know that.
I'm not embarrassed of it, though. Like, I do it because I like it. I was obsessed with them when I was
I know.
13
We should
years
tell this
old.
story about when Maria was, how old were you? Was I with Gabe yet?
I don't even know.
I feel like I wasn't even.
I had to be 11 or 12.
Yeah, she was like 11 to 12. It was before I even met Gabe, and we finally got her tickets to the My Chemical Romance concert, and she was so ready to go. She was like obsessed with that. What was his name? Gerard or something? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like obsessed with this guy, and she like had all the albums and wore the t-shirts and everything. And then he had to cancel the concert because he was like sick or something.
They got like food poisoning or something, and they had to cancel the Philly show. I was devastated.
She was like, I feel like I let her stay home from school that day so she could cry all day. Like it was bad, and I still don't think that she's quite over it because have you seen them? No, right?
I've seen them 2 times. I'm so annoyed when they came in 2020. They were supposed to come in the fall of 2020, and in February the tickets went on sale. I remember this day because I worked the Wing Bowl, which, if anybody's from Philly, it's like a bunch of strippers and gross men eating wings.
That sounds really fun.
It's a good event to work if you want to make quick cash. But anyway, I remember we just got done because it happens at 6 o'clock in the morning. So the tickets went on sale at 10. We just got done working it, me and my friend Sam. And I was trying to get the tickets, and my phone kept crashing out. And then they ended up being like $300 a ticket. I'm like, this is ridiculous. They were like 18. I feel like Pop-Up talking about it. Like, these were $18 back in my day.
Yeah, that sounds like me every single day of my life. I can't even imagine that everything costs a lot. And I'm like, all right, this is how you like officially know that you're old.
I don't know. They have a really cool sweatshirt on their website I saw earlier today. I was just looking that It's like collegiate, and it says dead, and I thought that would be really cute. So somebody that knows them should have them send me that shirt.
Oh my God. Or you could just buy
it. Sure. Or Christmas, and my birthday's coming up, so you never know. Anyway, if you want to buy some things that are themed dead and have anything to do with us, you can check out the links in the description of this episode. We have a favorite things page where it's some products we really love. It shows some of our sponsors too. If you can't remember the link or the promo code, that's all on there. We have holiday cards, book plates. You could also buy my mom's book. It's on Amazon. It's an awesome coffee table book, the perfect little Christmas present if you want to freak somebody out, but it looks really beautiful, so it's unsuspecting. And we have merch as well, so it's cute little merch you could gift to yourself, your friend, your colleague, whatever. But I'll put all those links in the description.
Also, don't forget to leave us a review if you really like the podcast, because we really need to get some reviews. So just leave us one with your honest opinion in it, please.
All right, well, thank you guys, and I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving, happy holiday shopping to our fellow shoppers. We know it's a very important weekend.
Oh yeah, we're
for
doing
us
Black Friday, right? The kids are all like, "What's Black Friday?" And we're trying to explain to them, before this internet thing, they just like can't wrap their mind around like life before that. But so we're gonna try to go out at like Lillian thinks we're gonna wake up at like 2:00 in the morning and try to go shopping or whatever. And I was like, maybe we could do like 6. Let's not go too nuts.
Are you like, your sister's gonna be here at 3 a.m. so get ready?
I just don't understand. Like, do they have like I could just lay in bed and do it. I know that we're gonna go get a coffee and it'll be an experience, but what is Black Friday even a thing at stores anymore?
Actually, there's something I really want to get Ricky that we can maybe get at a store on Friday.
Wow, it'll be worth waking up at 6 a.m. just for that. All right, guys.
Well, if the deal is right.
Thanks for joining us today.